Welcome to one of the most listened to music news podcasts in the world, SGNP, with your host, Darren Sutherland. Join us as we talk with industry leaders, artists, and entertainers about their faith, family, and careers. This is information you will not find anywhere else on radio, web, or in a magazine, but only firsthand on SGNP.
This hour, are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Are you washed in the blood, in the soul-cleansing blood of the Lamb? Are your garments spotless, are they white as snow? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Lay aside the garments that are stained with sin and be washed in the blood of the Lamb. There's a fountain flowing for the soul unclean. Oh, be washed in the blood of the Lamb. Are you washed in the blood, in the soul-cleansing blood of the Lamb? Are your garments spotless, are they white as snow? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Are you washed in the blood, in the soul-cleansing blood of the Lamb? Are your garments spotless, are they white as snow? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb?
And welcome to episode number 151. Arthur, would you believe that? 151 of Southern Gospel News Podcast, the most listened to gospel music podcast in the whole wide world. We don't say that braggadociously, if that's a word. We say that, Arthur, as a blessing because we get to speak to people literally all over the world. We've got listeners in Norway. We've got listeners in Ireland, who no doubt today will jump up and down because we're talking bluegrass gospel today. Yeah. And just in great listeners here, right here in the States, Arthur. And how you doing, my friend? It's been a couple weeks.
I'm good. Right in the middle of Christmas and just wide open, so we're doing good. Doing good. Busy. It's a busy time.
Busy stuff in the world of the Kingdom Heirs. I noticed on Facebook, your bass singer, he must be making big money, man, be selling Corvettes out there. What's up with that?
I guess probably, what they say, the best day you buy or best day of your life is when you buy a Corvette, and then second best is when you sell it. Yeah. I think it's, yeah.
Well, all these people think gospel music artists charge too much when they come to a church. And then now all of a sudden, Jeff Chapman's putting a picture of him and his Corvette on Facebook for 5,000 people to look at. You need to reach over and smack him. Say, Jeff, you're giving us a bad image. We know it's a broke down Corvette, but yet, it is what it is. So anyway,
aren't they all?
Yeah.
I've never seen one that wasn't.
That they are. Hey, man, we're going a little different direction today, and I always love this. We're going bluegrass today, and Jonathan Buckner with Chosen Road is with us. And Arthur, is it true that all gospel singers really want to be bluegrass singers? Is it true in that?
Pretty close. Pretty close. I always wanted.
If you ever went into Rex Nealon's office back in the day, he was always playing something by the Lewis family or by Doyle Lawson and Quicksilver. Yeah. And we know that. The Isaacs have built bridges amongst country music, amongst bluegrass music, and amongst gospel music that have set the standard for bluegrass gospel music. And if you listen to these guys today in our show, and we'll play a few clips from their songs, you're going to love these guys. And you'll love their story and what they're doing with the North American Mission Board and all that fun kind of stuff. And stick around because we're going to have a good time. I want to remind everybody, check us out on Facebook. You can check us out, Southern Gospel News Podcast. We update it every once in a while. Sometimes we get a little trouble started on there, but that's just to keep everybody happy and all that fun. And if you want to listen to some of our past episodes, Southern Gospel News Podcast.com. I will go ahead and announce our upfront because we know we've got it scheduled for tomorrow. Next week on the show, Ray Dean Reese of the Kingsmen, your cousin, going to be a part with us. And I've got a bigger announcement for the following week. You ready for this, Arthur?
Mm-hmm.
Rhett Walker, country singer, contemporary Christian music artist, is going to be on talking about his song, Give Me That Good Old Gospel Song, that's making its way up the country music charts and doing a fun. So we'll have that coming up. But just as sure as I mentioned both of them, they'll get canceled and we'll end up with Bill Gaither on. So, that's the way it goes. That's the way it goes from time to time. Hey, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with Jonathan Buckner on Southern Gospel News Podcast.
Be creative, innovative, passionate. Be excellent, inspiring, driven. Be faithful, disciplined, prepared. At Union University, you will thrive in a Christ-centered community and be equipped for success in your life and career. Begin your journey today. At Union University, be transformed.
This is Josh Singletary with Tribute Quartet, and you're listening to SGNP.
We read of a place that's called heaven. It's made for the pure and the free. These truths in God's word He has given. How beautiful heaven must be. In heaven no drooping nor pining, no wishing for elsewhere to be. God's light is forever there shining. How beautiful heaven must be. How beautiful heaven must be. Sweet home of the happy and free. Fair haven of rest for the weary. How beautiful heaven must be. Pure waters of life there are flowing, and all who will drink may be free. Rare jewels of splendor are glowing. How beautiful heaven must be. The so sweetly are singing up there by the beautiful sea. Sweet chords from their gold harps are ringing. How beautiful heaven must be. How beautiful heaven must be. Sweet home of the happy and free. Fair haven of rest for the weary. How beautiful heaven must be.
And welcome back to Southern Gospel News Podcast. If you heard that music right there, man, what a blessing. I said this earlier in the show. All gospel stars want to be a bluegrass star. All bluegrass stars want to be a country star. And all country stars want to be a gospel star. And they're all cousins. And truth of the matter is, you could throw contemporary Christian music and a lot of rock stars in there too, because the best thing about this is they all love singing about Jesus if they know him as their Lord and Savior. And that's the cool part about this. And if you listen to these guys' music for 3 minutes or 3 hours, you know they know a little something about Jesus. Jonathan, welcome to Southern Gospel News Podcast, my friend.
Thank you, Darren. Thank you.
Hey, man, tell the folks that don't know about Chosen Road a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your background and your group.
Well, we just want to be a quartet.
Yeah, there you go. See, Arthur?
Right. No,
Yeah, that's right.
no. So we're a bluegrass gospel group. This is our 12th year of being in existence. We started in July of 2009 with one mission and one purpose, and that was just to take the music of the mountains that we call home here in Appalachia and use it as a vehicle to make much of Jesus all around the world. And so we started out back in 2009 just singing in every little country church and every holler throughout southern West Virginia. And then since that time, by the grace of God, we have been able to share Christ through this music all around the world, multiple countries. And we just have one desire, and that's to make much of Jesus. And then on the side of that, we get to introduce a lot of people to the music that we love.
Cool. What got you told me before the show started that your family goes back into the gospel music world, and you were drugged to all night singings when you were a child by your parents and all that kind of stuff. Tell us about that gospel music influence that you've got, Jonathan.
Southern gospel music has been a massive influence in my life, and even in our music as Chosen Road. I cannot tell you the number of times that I saw the great Arthur Rice on stage at Dollywood, the quartet convention at my home church here in West Virginia. And but I grew up going to all night sings, quartet convention every year. My mom and dad, they were Class A diesel sniffers.
Arthur, he knows 100%. The lingo, man. We're in for a good show today. If he can throw diesel sniffers out there, we're in for a good show.
But I love Southern gospel music. Side story, I don't think I've ever told anybody this. When I was probably in the 7th grade, I think I did my social studies project on the history of Southern gospel music. I was ed up with it when I was a kid. Yeah.
Wow. What was your grade on that project?
Man, I actually went to the state level with it. I got past our school, middle school, and then went on to our county, and then I went to state with it. Yeah.
Nice.
How cool is that? That's awesome.
That is pretty cool.
Awesome.
Was Arthur old enough to be in that project at that time, or did you have to use all the old guys? That's a question.
Man, I can't remember. It's very possible that my mom and dad still have pieces of that project at their house. I don't know. I'd have to go back and look.
Well, Jonathan, since you're getting somewhat famous out there, doing your bluegrass stuff, maybe you need to
hang on to that.
Hang on to that and
That's
send
right.
send it to Arthur, and they can put it in Southern Gospel Music Hall of Fame down
That's
there.
right.
Yeah.
I got a place for that thing, man.
Yeah.
Man, I loved it. I was trying to remember. I think I interviewed for that project in 7th grade. I think I interviewed Ivan Parker.
Wow.
And I think I interviewed George Yance.
Nice.
And I can't remember who else it was, but yeah.
Wow.
Cool.
Loved it.
That's really cool.
That is cool. So Jonathan, what all do you play? What's your instrumental background? To be a bluegrass guy, you've almost got to play something. So
yeah. So in the band in Chosen Road, I actually play guitar. I also play mandolin and bass, and I play a little bit on the piano and stuff too. But in Chosen Road, I play the guitar. That's my instrument of choice.
Who's your influences? Who's your musical influences?
As far as bluegrass music goes, it would have to be Doyle Lawson and Quicksilver.
Yeah.
I would say when it comes to bluegrass music, he would be my number one, and he's retiring at the end of this year. Love Doyle's music. He's just been amazing through the years, what he's been able to do with so many different lineups of guys, and he's always just brought first class, top notch music to the stage. So Doyle Lawson and Quicksilver. When I was a kid, I loved the Cathedral Quartet. Loved J.D. Sumner and the Stamps. Those were probably my two favorites growing up. And if you listen to Chosen Road's music, the vocals, that's kind of our bread and butter. That's where we kind of put the majority of the emphasis in our music is on the vocals. So you can definitely hear that Southern gospel influence in there. But beyond that, I'm a huge Ricky Skaggs fan. I think he's one of the most talented guys that's ever been, and I love him as a person too. And then probably in the contemporary Christian world, probably Phillips, Craig, and Dean would be my number one. So yeah, kind of a myriad of different genres and within gospel music. And yeah.
You know what? I will tell you what a bluegrass fan I am. And you're going to laugh. Arthur, you're going to laugh at this. 2 weeks ago, the wife and I went to see Stephen Curtis Chapman and Mac Powell at a local church here. And when I walked in, folks, I'm going to just tell you the truth. I thought I was at a Gaither homecoming because everybody had gray hair. And I looked at my wife and I said, man, I love gospel music. I'm used to being the youngest one here. Now this crowd looks like a Gaither crowd. And she said, Darren, it's Stephen Curtis Chapman. He's old enough to be on a Gaither stage at this point. But I love the fact he did 35 minutes of his bluegrass project, and it was awesome. It was awesome, and he done a great job. So
well, and he actually has put out 2 bluegrass albums. He did one a few years ago for the Cracker Barrel label, and then that kind of went out of print. Then he released his new one. I think it was like last year. It was last year. And so that album, his Stephen Curtis Chapman took the bluegrass world by storm. I mean, that bluegrass album was number 1 on Billboard on their bluegrass albums charts for weeks on end. And we were on it. We released a new album last year too, and it was on there as well. But Stephen Curtis Chapman, he took the top spot for many weeks.
There you go. I'm going to tell y'all a little secret that I'm going to let Arthur jump in here. I've never told this story on Southern Gospel News Podcast. Arthur couldn't be with me the day we interviewed Stephen Curtis Chapman. I think he had to sing at Dollywood that day or something. I don't know why he would be doing that, but that's just what
I would have canceled.
Yeah, I tried to. But anyway, before we did the interview, I said, Stephen, you wrote this song for the Cathedrals and this song for Gold City and this song for, I think, the Hoppers or somebody like that. I said, let me sell you before we go on the air as the writer of these songs, because what I don't want to happen, because my grandmother would have done it, maybe your grandmother would have done it, Jonathan, Arthur, maybe your family would have done it. They would have said, Darren's done went contemporary. He's done went and got Stephen Curtis Chapman on there. So Stephen talked about writing for the Cathedrals in Gold City. So it was a fun thing. Arthur, what you got, my friend?
I'll tell you, it's funny, you talk about different artists doing bluegrass and stuff. A funny story, one of our entertainment directors, he's passed on now, but used to, bluegrass was huge at Dollywood. I mean, we had a month-long bluegrass festival, and but they came from all over the world. I mean, and then of course it's kind of fell off, but it's coming back, which is really cool, and I love that because I love that festival. But one of our entertainment directors was telling us one time about how they I was asking him how they found all these artists and stuff, and he said we go to these bluegrass festivals, these huge events and bluegrass festivals, and then we find somebody that we like to hear, and then ask them if they'd like to come. He said the only thing about that, you have to be really careful, because who you hire to come may not necessarily be the people that you heard, because you'll have one or two guys that'll come off stage and they're like, hey man, we need a dobro player, or we need a mandolin player, come up and play with us. And so all of a sudden they put together a 7-piece band. There's only 2 of them in the group. And he said, it's just, they're just great. They're great, but you hire them and they may not show up.
That's cool.
But it's funny how that is, but that is exactly the way bluegrass band, they just want to play, they just want to make music, and I love it. But I love y'all stuff, and I really hadn't listened to a whole lot of it. I heard about you guys, and I heard somebody had played for me here a while back, and then when Darren said we were having you on, I thought, oh man, I need to go back, and so I listened. Man, y'all stuff is great, and you are right. I mean, your music is bluegrass, but you guys could be a quartet. Just all you need to do is just change the music just a little bit. You'd be a great quartet.
Well, you know what? I'm voting for this right here. And Jonathan, maybe you'll go along with this vote. I think we call Clark Beasley and say, hey man, we got a replacement for the Lewis family at National Quartet Convention. And I'm sure Jonathan and them would go over and try that once or twice. And
man, we would do it. We would do it. That's, in the world of bluegrass gospel music, it's kind of sad. The Primitive Quartet, they've been there for forever, and they're some of my favorite people in the world, but they're
Good
probably, just amazing people. I love them, but they're kind of getting towards the end of their career. Dole's hanging it up the end of this year. So in terms of, like I said,
Rochester, the Rochesters just hung it up,
they are.
Another.
I was talking to Ben a couple of days ago. Yeah. And so in the world of bluegrass gospel music, the Isaacs are still around, but there's just not a whole lot left really. So
yeah.
Right. Jonathan, let me ask you this right here. As a young guy singing bluegrass gospel music, what did it mean as a fan, as a full-time musician, as a performing artist, to see the Isaacs inducted into the Grand Ole Opry a few weeks back, or about a couple months back?
It was awesome. I was there that night, and it was absolutely amazing. The first thought that came to my mind was the fact that, my goodness, are they the first gospel group to be inducted? And then, of course, folks have, they said, well, the Browns and possibly the Jordanaires. But then there's the other side of that. They weren't strictly gospel. But then second, there's not been that many bluegrass artists that have been inducted until this year. You had Rhonda Vincent and now the Isaacs. And then a family group. There's not been very many of them. So they absolutely made history in gospel music, in bluegrass music, in country music. I was absolutely thrilled for them.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool stuff. Cool stuff. Hey, who would you like, Jonathan, picking all the artists in gospel music? I'm gonna throw this out there. Who would you like to see do a gospel album do a bluegrass album that's a gospel star that you've liked? You mentioned Ivan Parker earlier. I cannot imagine Ivan singing Midnight Cry from a bluegrass perspective, but I'm sure he could do it, no doubt. But what artist can you think of right off the top of your head that you'd like to see do a bluegrass album?
So are we talking Southern gospel artists or gospel artists in general?
Gospel artists in general. Anybody out there. Anybody.
Okay. So I would have to say, so I'm going to go for Phillips, Craig, and Dean.
Nice.
That would be.
And I've got a reason for that. So we've gotten to know those guys over the past few years, and they've been heroes of mine since I was a kid. And then through a guy named Dave Clark, Arthur, who you might know, the songwriter, Dave.
Yeah.
We got to meet Dan and Randy and Sean, and they've just become dear friends of ours, and we've sang out at Randy's church in Austin several times, in Dan's church. And so on our album that we released last year, Appalachian Worship, we actually reached out and said, hey, would you all want to sing, a song with us? And so Dan actually came and sang Mercy Came Running. And Dan has a great bluegrass country voice. You would just never know it until you hear him with the banjo. But then you hear him with the banjo, and it's just like, man, the guy was born to sing bluegrass.
Cool.
That's funny. That's
Cool.
funny. Yeah, a lot of, you can't really say that about Southern gospel artists, because most Southern gospel artists have kind of somehow flirted with bluegrass music.
A lot of them have.
Yeah. So yeah, it's part of.
Arthur, let me ask you this. And when we talk about bluegrass and we talk about gospel music, there's never been Dole Lawson has been there, and he's the standard in which it's been set. The Isaacs came out of gospel music. Now, country, not country, but bluegrass, dominant folk, roots type music is what they turn it. But when you look at bluegrass gospel music, the granddaddy of them all is the Lewis family. Okay. What made Southern gospel music so receptive to the Lewis family back in the day? I mean, they're Hall of Fame members, and they're in the Southern Gospel Music Hall of Fame, which you're the president of. What made the Lewis family so popular, Arthur?
Well, I think part of it had to do with, being from the Appalachians and being from, the South, and being a part of that, that bluegrass history of music made them appealing to a lot of people, because it was the music that they grew up listening to. Where a lot of quartets and stuff came across, it was just piano and vocals, and and early on, but the Lewis family came on, and it was the music that they grew up listening to. It was bluegrass, and it was, it was okay to like it, and it was okay to love it, and it was okay to make it part of a worship experience. And I think that's why they were so popular at that time. I think it just made the music, because a lot of that mountain music, was not, it was kind of dance hall music. It was kind of, it was kind of a party. It wasn't part of a church. You know what I mean? It was just, church was piano and organ, and when they kind of came along, I think it kind of made that music okay.
Cool. Jonathan,
did that make sense?
That
makes sense, Jonathan.
Yeah, that was a great question. I never thought about that, and I think that what you said, I think that it was cultural. That a lot of it just had to do with the culture, and because like here where I live, I think that one of the reasons you look at Southern Gospel Quartet singing, shape note singing here in the mountains, the big thing was primitive Baptist churches, and the old a cappella singing that we would call lining a song out. Where there wouldn't be a piano, there wouldn't be an organ, there wouldn't be any of that. And so you just had that pure harmony singing. And so then you had a group like the Lewis family, and then Dole on down the line many years later that just took that and put it with the music that was brought, over by our Scots-Irish ancestors. So I think it's just a cultural thing.
Yeah.
Jonathan, has there ever been a better ear for music than Dole Lawson? I've heard the stories of musicians playing in a string break, 4 guys down from him on the left-hand side in a hall that's holding 2,000 people, and Dole can hear the string break. I mean, has there ever been a better ear?
In terms of bluegrass music, it's tough. I mean, I'm going to say he's one of the best. Yeah. I'm going to say he's definitely one of the top 3. Okay. But I think in terms of bluegrass music, you have to go back to guys that were before him and think about the fact that they created an entire genre of music that they had never heard before. I mean, you think about that. They came up with this thing called bluegrass music, and they invented an entire genre, and they never heard it before. Bill Monroe used to talk about he had this sound in his head. and he heard it in his head, but he just had to, he was trying to get it out and to get people to understand what it was that he was hearing. And the same thing with Earl Scruggs. I mean, before Earl, he was the first guy to play what we call 3-finger style, banjo with that roll. Nobody did that before Earl. He invented that. So that's just, but I'd say Doyle's up there with him for sure.
Cool. That's cool. Cool stuff. Cool. Great insight. You've got to travel around working with the North American Mission Board, Jonathan, to a lot of different places. Tell us, and I've read comments from pastors and men of God like, Dr. Johnny Hunt talking about what a great men you are. What has that meant to Chosen Road to be part of those venues and be part of that ministry? Tell us a little bit about that.
The work that we've done with the North American Mission Board, we're all Southern Baptist guys, so the work that they do is near and dear to our heart. And we were all well aware of the amazing work that NAM's done for years before we started working with them. But they reached out to us 3 or 4 years ago now and asked us to partner with them specifically in raising awareness to the number of churches that shut their doors every single year in North America and never open again. And I think that number, as of a few years ago, was like 4,000 to 6,000 churches a year in North America close their doors, never open again. And so they were trying to address that, and it's really turned into an entire movement. It's a replant and revitalization, church replanting and revitalization. They asked us just to come along and record a song to be an encouragement to pastors that were laboring in these dying churches. And so then through that, we've gotten to work and lead worship in a lot of pastors' conferences with NAM. And of course, they shared that song with thousands and thousands of pastors all around the world. And it's just been some of the most gratifying and meaningful work that we've done, because there's pastors that we talk to, sometimes on a weekly or monthly basis, that we met them through our music, through our partnership with NAM, and they'll, send us an email. Hey, that song, I was ready to quit this week. I was ready just to walk out of the office and never come back. But that song got me through another day, got me through another week. And so it's been some amazing work that we've done with them. And they've really made a dent in it. I think that now they're saving like 200 to 300 churches a year that were in danger of shutting their doors. They're opening the doors back up, and they're replanting and revitalizing churches for the glory of God. So that's just amazing stuff.
That's awesome.
It's awesome. I seem to ask this question a lot of times, but I love hearing the responses to it, and that's why I continue asking it. Jonathan, where were you? It could have been a big church. It could have been a concert. It could have been a small church. It could have been a NAM mission board. It could have been the Grand Ole Opry, for all I know. When you really looked up and you realized, Lord, you're doing something amazing with this talent you've given me. Thank you. We take things for granted a lot of times, but where was that moment, Jonathan, that you were like, wow, he, as big as he is allowing me to do this? Tell us about that moment.
Yeah. So I would say that it's going to be in 2 stages for me. Like I said, I grew up in a family that loves Southern gospel music. My home church in Princeton, West Virginia, growing up, we had anybody and everybody when it came to Southern gospel music. So I was around it all the time, and I played in the church band. And so I grew up playing in church. And so I think I just kind of took it for granted a lot. But then I remember when it clicked for me, and when I fell in love with bluegrass and I decided that this was what I wanted to do with my life, was actually my mom and dad hated bluegrass music. They hated it, thought it was terrible. But Bill Gaither did the very first bluegrass gospel homecoming video. And I remember seeing that come on television one night, and I was sitting in my mom and dad's living room with my guitar. And I remember we watched the entire thing that night, and it was like, man, bluegrass music's okay. Bill Gaither said it was. So I fell in love with it, and I just started digging in and just trying to learn as much as I could on the guitar. And I remember praying with my dad one night. I was sitting there, my dad could play on the bass a little bit, and we'd set up together late at night and just play through old hymns. And he was just trying to help me, teach me what it was that he could teach me. And I remember praying with him, God, just give me the talent. And Lord, just all I wanted to do, I remember praying, God, all I want to do is just spend the rest of my life using this music to tell people about your son. And that was a prayer that he and I prayed together in our living room, and he answered that prayer. And when it kind of came to, it just kind of smacked me in the face. It was a few years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago now. We were doing a television taping with Dole, and through the years, through playing, I've gotten to know Dole and all the guys that have been there through his different lineups very well. They're close friends. Dole's a close friend now. And but we were doing a television show, and Dole was a cast member for that season, and Chosen Road was going to be a cast member. And we were doing our filming on the same date. And I remember I was standing on the side of the stage. We'd all been cutting up in the green room, and Dole was walking out. And I remember just standing there thinking, God has brought me to a place to where I'm able to make music and share the stage with a guy that's my hero. I think for a while I'd kind of forgotten that he was my hero. He still is, but it just kind of, God slapped me in the face that day. Look how far, by his grace, he's brought us. And so that was when it was for me. It was like, wow, just a moment just to stop back and look what God had done.
That's cool. Cool
That's
stuff.
awesome.
What you got,
That's
Arthur?
awesome. Yeah, that is it's when that's kind of like me when I, first started with the Kingsmen, and all of a sudden I'm sharing the stage with these guys that I listened to on the radio and watched on TV and tried to mimic and tried to, all these great artists through the years, and people that my dad told me about, it's like Jay Cass and Hope Lister and all these guys, and they're they're just talking to me just like we're talking. There's regular people, and you kind of forget about that, because it's like, well, they're just before they're kind of big in our eyes, and then all of a sudden they just come, they're just kind of regular people. But it is, I mean, it's like, wow, these are the people that we looked up to, and I was the cool thing, there are some out there that kind of let you down at times, but for the most part, man, most of them really love the Lord, and really, they did their best to not hurt their name and tarnish their, they were still respectable, and still, I could still look up to them, and that's cool when you can do that. It really is. And so,
absolutely,
I get that. I understand that. Really do.
That's cool stuff. Cool stuff. Who has surprised you most in a positive way that you've met while on the road, Jonathan, that you looked at, or maybe you seen from afar and thought, kind of like the rest of us, wow, that's just so-and-so. I'm sure but then when you met them, it was like, wow, I just met so-and-so.
Oh man, that's tough for me. There's been a lot of them. There have been a lot of them. I would say probably, and I hate to keep going back to it, I mean, Dole's been one of those guys, Ricky Skaggs, one of those guys. But I would say probably for me, it would be Phillips, Craig, and Dean again. And I think one of the reasons why is, like, it makes no sense why they've kind of taken us under their wings, and they've been mentors to us, because our music is like, it's related because the message. The message it relates, but as far as like a genre, like the format, it's just so different. But it was just, I never will forget the first day I talked to Dan, was on the phone in a Waffle House, and I was having breakfast with Dave Clark there in Nashville, and he was like, well, I was just talking about Dan, and we got to talking about, we all kind of had a common thing. Dan's dad made the D-Day invasion. Dave's dad made the D-Day invasion, and my grandfather made the D-Day invasion. And I was getting ready to go. We were getting ready to go play in Scotland, and I was going over a few days early to go to Normandy. And so Dave was like, man, we got to talk to Dan about this. And he knew that I was a big fan of Dan, and so I just started talking to Dan on the phone. And then they actually were playing at the Billy Graham Training Center, and so we went over to hang out with them, and they were just like, man, come to Texas. And so we did, and we've been several times now, and they've just been a big encouragement. And I don't know why. They're just God people, man. They're all about kingdom work. And it's been, because to me, like I said, I grew up around Southern gospel music. I was around a lot of people, but Phillips, Craig, and Dean, I mean, you look at a song like Revelation song, when it comes to contemporary Christian music, those guys are rock stars.
Yeah. No
Yeah.
doubt.
Oh, absolutely.
No doubt. And now you've built another 200,000 fans amongst the gospel world because they'll listen to this podcast and they'll say, Phillips, Craig, and Dean, we got to go back and listen to them. And they'll listen to their 1980s music, and it'll sound like some Southern gospel in 2020. So we could have a whole nother show on that, couldn't we,
right.
Arthur?
That's right.
Well,
If
you
you'd
know,
have-
Dan called me. Dan called me last year. They released an album last year. And he was like, man, he talks in that Texas Southern drawl, man. He's like, you know how you're old? And I said, how? I said, how do you know you're old, Dan? He said, man, he said, Gaither's going to do the distribution for this new CD that's coming out.
It's going to be in Cracker Barrel.
Hey.
Yeah.
But the thing
That's
about it is, if the Godfather's thumbprint's on it, it's going to sell. So that's all that matters, folks.
Amen.
That's
That's
all.
right.
That's all that matters. Well,
That's right.
we're getting up against the clock. Jonathan, thank you for taking time out of your busy day and sharing
man.
some of your story and your I was kidding you earlier. I don't know if we were recording or not, but I was kidding you about being a West Virginia guy. You don't have much to root for in terms of football this year. So, I can kind of stand up on my bully pulpit and beat my chest for my Georgia Bulldogs.
You can.
This year and I'm going to tell y'all something funny. Y'all ready for this? And Arthur, we hadn't talked about this, and Arthur knows what a Braves fan I am. I used to pray, and I'm 52 years old, and I used to pray, Lord, let me live long enough to see the Braves win the World Series again and the Bulldogs win the national championship. Well, I've made an addendum to that prayer and started throwing the Falcons into the Super Bowl because I don't want to die in the next 6 months. Okay. So anyway, it's
You're going to live forever.
I'm going to live forever. That's right. Yeah, there we go. There we go. Because I'm a gospel music fan, Arthur. That's why I live forever. Again, Jonathan, thank you for your time, my friend. How can people find out more information about Chosen Road? Because no doubt when they hear your music on this show, they're going to love it. They're just going to love it, man. How can they find out more information about you?
So chosenroadmusic.com is the website, and that's kind of the launch pad for everything. But we're all over Apple Music and iTunes, Amazon Music, Spotify, Pandora, all those things that us artists just love so dearly. Now we're there.
Yeah.
There you go. There
That's
you go.
right. Jonathan, thanks, buddy. Man, keep it up, man. Great.
Arthur,
great
thank
stuff.
you. It's been a joy. I've been a fan of yours for a long time. And
Well,
like I said, it's an honor to talk to you.
Well, I tell you, man, I appreciate you guys and what you're doing. Just keep it up.
Thank you.
Hey, Jonathan, you got to make me one promise. You ready for this?
Yes, sir.
When you make it big time, not that you hadn't made it big time, but like when you're a regular on the Grand Ole Opry or something like that, and we call you and get you scheduled for Southern Gospel News Podcast, and you remember, you say, yeah, I'll do that show again. And just keep me that promise. Will you do that?
I promise that. I promise.
We go. There we go, my friend. We got to make, you know what? I don't think we've ever had anybody turn us down for the second time, Arthur. Have we?
I don't think so.
I don't either. But anyway, great talking to you, my friend. I appreciate it. We're going to take a break. We're going to take a break, play another song by Chosen Road. Arthur and I'll be here back to close it out on SGNP.
Brethren, we have met to worship and adore the Lord our God. Will you pray with all your power while we try to preach the word? All is vain unless the Spirit of the Holy One comes down. Brethren, pray and holy manna will be showered all around. Brethren, see poor sinners round you, slumbering on the brink of woe. Death is coming, hell is moving. Can sister helped him too. Will you help the trembling mourners who are struggling hard with sin? Tell them all about our Savior. Tell them that He will be found. Sisters, pray, and holy manna will be showered all around. Let us love our God supremely. Let us love each other too. Let us love and pray for sinners till our God makes all things new. Then He'll call us home to heaven. At His table we'll sit down. Christ will gird Himself and serve us with sweet manna all around.
And welcome back to SGNP Chosen Road. Jonathan Buckner. Great interview, Arthur. Great insight.
That's great. Yeah.
You know, for folks that don't know, Jonathan's a young guy. I mean, we could see through the video, you know, Jonathan's not an old guy. I mean, this is a young guy traveling for Jesus and singing for him. So, you know, doing a great work with NAM, singing was one thing about bluegrass folks, Arthur, that I've always noticed is the good ones are always attracted to each other like magnets. Have you ever noticed that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, if you go to a bluegrass concert, you look out in the crowd and there's people just as talented in the crowd as there is on stage sometimes.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean,
You're right.
it's a cool genre. And I make no mistake when I say this. You asked our buddy Todd Nealon, what did his daddy listen to? And his daddy, with that Asheville, North Carolina influence where you grew up, loved bluegrass music and listened to it all the time. And I've made no mistake about this in telling you the Primitive are some of my favorites when it comes to gospel music and bluegrass music. So anyway, well, hey man, one thing before we get out of here, can you tell us, I know you were going to make an announcement and I don't know if you've made this public. If you hadn't, we can do it at another time, but can you make,
we haven't.
You hadn't made it? Okay.
We haven't yet.
I'll leave it there.
I will tease.
Okay.
Y'all don't want to miss it. It's going to be, there's some great things happening for the SGMA.
For Southern Gospel Music Association. Great stuff coming up. Awesome stuff. Awesome stuff. So, hey, let me ask you this. Now, I know you don't like getting on a bus a lot of times, but you're about to start your season traveling on a bus. You love to see the people. You just hate putting 4 hours on a bus. Okay. Let's make no mistake about that, because a lot of people are like that. But did you kind of want to be a part of that singing at Graceland the other week that the guys
yes, that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
That was kind of cool. That was, there's a couple places I would, Memphis, I would like to do Memphis. That was kind of, that whole, we talked about trying to do that. And it's just, it's just so hard for us to get away, get back, and
Right.
and that sort of thing. Memphis, the convention, the quartet convention is always kind of cool, and the Graceland thing is just that's kind of cool. So maybe one day,
Yeah.
who knows?
Yeah. Who knows? I thought when I was seeing that thing and I watched it, I thought, you know what? Kingdom Air should be at Memphis. They should be at Memphis. I mean, that would be pretty cool. So, buddy, thank you for sticking with me and being a part. And I know you've been busy. I've been busy. We've all been busy, crazy busy. But we got your buddy Ray Dean Reese coming up next, and that's going to be fun, no doubt. Ray Dean is one of the guys that we used to think was middle-aged, and now he's one of the senior saints, so to speak.
I know. Crazy.
Crazy. Hey, buddy, in closing, I'm going to ask you something I always do. What's wrong with living right anyway?
Not one thing.
Not one thing. You've been listening to SGNP.
SGNP is excited you chose to listen today. If you'd kindly leave a remark and rating in the podcast remarks section, we surely would appreciate it. Please share with a friend or family member. Look for us on Facebook, Twitter, and our new website, southerngospelnewspodcast.com. To advertise your products, services, concert event, or new project on SGNP and reach a 100% guaranteed number of people in your area, call Tim Newton at 770-874-3200 or email him today, tnewton@bgadgroup.com. Let us geo-target our ads for you, something radio nor magazine can do.